All right, we are now joined by Matt Swope, head baseball coach here at the University of Maryland. First and foremost, thanks so much for having us today.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Welcome to College Park.
First question I always like to ask head coaches is, what is your message to this community, this fan base, people who care about this program, people who are interested in this program, about where you guys are at now and the direction you feel like you're headed?
Yeah, well, I mean, the expectation is to win every game. You know, we've been one game away from Omaha a couple of times here. So the recruits, the fans, the alumni, they know that, we have that expectation to try to win every game. So we're just trying to break down those doors to Omaha and get there for the first time. But that's the expectation right now.
You've been in college baseball for a really long time. You have a ton of experience, 14 years here at the University of Maryland. How much have you seen the college game change? And kind of what's your perception of the landscape right now of college baseball and college athletics on the whole? We have had so many different things added in, the NIL era, portal. It just feels like it's kind of in a constant state of change right now.
Yeah, it feels like we've had 10 years of changes in the past 2 or 3 years. But, it's something that when I started here as a player, we had 4.5 scholarships, right? And then when I came back in 2013, we were barely fully funded. So it seems like, as a program, as someone who's worked here for a long time, we've always been kind of adapt and change and roll with it and had to be really, really creative. So it's something I'm used to. It's something that we're used to as an organization. So, and that's part of it. If you want to be comfortable in college athletics, it's not going to work out for you. So you have to be really willing to adapt and change on the fly. And it is a lot, but, I always try to keep perspective, right? And just say like, okay, you can complain about it. You can be frustrated with all the changes, but take a step back and just how thankful and blessed I am to have my dream job at University of Maryland and look at it as an opportunity, or how can I try to find a niche within this change to propel us forward.
Do you think with how transient rosters can be nowadays, do you think that it's possible to I think it's possible. Do you think it's different and it's more of a challenge to kind of continue program development and momentum with how transient rosters are, and even within that culture? Is it kind of like a completely different world now? Because you might have 12 guys in who now, instead of coming from high school where you can mold them from 18 years old on, you're getting these guys in there who's had 3-4 years of college experience at different programs. Is it a different type of challenge nowadays?
It is. I mean, especially someone that played here. That's the hardest part for me. Like, this is my heart and soul. My parents got married on the chapel here. They both went here. So for me, this is a lifestyle. It's not a job. Right. And everything we do is predicated on building relationships and development. So if I really care about these relationships, right, and there's a lot of volatility, there's a lot of change, it's very transient, like you said, it is tough. I've even had to dial it back a little bit and say, hey, okay, you have to look at things more year to year because a lot of things are out of your control, right? You may want to keep someone that wants to go in the portal. We haven't had a ton of problems with that, but you have to look at it more here and now. And kind of go through it like that, which is a little bit against the grain for me because I'm trying to build those relationships and I want to build those legacies with kids, and I want them to feel like they always have a place to come back. So it's certainly challenging, but you have to stay who you are. And I'm always going to build the relationship first and go about it that way. And sometimes, things don't work out the way you want or whatever. But if I feel like if you try to build the relationship and you do the right things, more times than not, things will work out.
So it sounds to me like roster retention then is really kind of one of your core philosophies and beliefs, and how important to you is that roster retention? And is it hard? Are those conversations tough? Is it kind of now in this world where it is kind of, it almost feels like, maybe not across the board, but there's a lot of situations where a guy doesn't get playing time or what he wants right away, and it's just acceptable. And now the easy way out is just, I'm going to hop in the portal and go somewhere where I can get kind of the situation I want. Is it important to have that open line of communication throughout the season to kind of know where your roster is going to be at year over year?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of patience anymore, right? Even if you are going to develop, even if you do try to preach the process a lot, it just seems like that. So yeah, it's really, really tough right now. It's a situation where my job is to tell the truth, right? So if that communication, like you said, is imperative to telling the truth all the time and being open and honest, even if they're not ready as a player. So if you consistently do that, but you do care and build the relationship, I mean, that's all you can really do. So it is really, really challenging. And that's where, in the recruiting process, you try to establish character. You try to do your homework and due diligence like we always have. But it's gotten a little bit more challenging just because they changed the rules recently, and the recruiting window is later, which gives us coaches a bit of our life back, which we like. But at the same time, you used to spend years building relationships with kids. Even there's a kid here that plays football and baseball, Bud Coombs. I've been talking to him since 8th grade, and now that's just changed. So you still try to attack the character in that sense a little bit, but yeah, it's super challenging today.
And then how important is it, we talk culture wise, right? And that's such a buzzword in college athletics and in any organization. Culture is just like a buzzy word. What does it mean to you? And is it any different? Have you seen, you've been doing this a long time, are kids different nowadays? Is building a culture different because of their personalities and everything that they've gone through, and we live in an information age? Like, how different is that experience?
It's a great question. It's so different. I spend more of my time in the off season or even my downtime talking to coaches and my own family is like, what do I have to do to motivate? Right. Because you can go 0 for 4 and then go post a picture on social media and get the comfort and get the likes. And now you're not stewing on it. When we didn't have that before, you were sitting in that failure. You were sitting in, hey, his coach was disappointed in me a day. How can I come back tomorrow and be better? You used to have to just sit in that. And that was in a form or a way being present. And today we're not doing that. There's the loss, then there's social media, then there's distractions and all these other things. There's the portal, it's always okay. You're always going to seem like you have another opportunity, right? So it's harder to get them grounded. So I'm consistently trying to change things up. We hired a third party to do our leadership training this year. We teach leaderships every 2 weeks. We have a leadership council. So last year I taught the leadership. So, whether it's books or third parties or motivational speakers or systems, I mean, that's what I feel like coaches do a lot, whether it's, I study football coaches and basketball coaches. You're just always consistently trying to find that edge to motivate and most importantly, stay present. And with the volatility of the portal, you just try to get them to buy in for the year. It's like, hey, we realize that there's going to be change. Let's call it out right now. We know that, but let's commit to each other till June, right? Let's commit till June and we're one unit. And we'll worry about that stuff after that.
What are some of the key components then in creating that buy-in, that type of buy-in with kids? Like, how do you go about then getting them all on board, kind of in that frame of mind that like, hey, we understand there's going to be change. All of you aren't going to be in this room next year. Let's face the facts. How do you create that buy-in then for say, hey, for these 9 months, this is who we got, and we're going to go to war with?
I don't know if anybody has the exact recipe for buy-in, because that's a key word, right? That has to come from the locker room. It has to come from them, but it's communication. Like, all you can do is have an open line of communication. All you can do is be transparent and vulnerable, which I try to be with the players. And the rest is up to them. It really is. I know who I am. I know what we're going to do as a coaching staff. I know how we're going to prepare. But the better teams is really mostly coming from what's going on actually in the locker room. So starts with communication, and you try to build them up and empower them to have something positive come out of fruition in the spring.
I want to go back to the answer before that one. You said something that kind of hit a nerve or struck a nerve with me, where you're talking about how, you go for 4 and you can just post on social media and you can get kind of the reinforcement. It's almost like nowadays we look for the excuse or the crutch to always kind of boost our confidence instead of maybe working through the adversity. How do you create an environment then where they can be comfortable in the failure? Because baseball, you fail all the dang time, and you can still be a really good, productive player, but you're going to fail. So how do you get them to understand that, especially young guys, like, hey, you're going to face this adversity. We have to work through it. We can't run from it or use a crutch to get by it.
Competing is non-negotiable for me. If you come over to my house and we play ping pong, like, I'm going to compete to the end. So competing is non-negotiable. It always has been for the 14 years I've been here. Whether that was John Sheff, Eric Bakich, Rob Vaughn, we're going to compete. We're going to create that environment where most of the days we're ending with some competition, putting stress on the guys. So I think it comes from a compete factor. The other part of it is you have to acknowledge the fact that, hey, we are trying to coach the individual to be better. I want your individual stats to be good, because of your individual stats and you get better as a player, we're going to be better as a team. But you also have to understand that if something doesn't go well for you, or it does, what else are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the table? How are you making the team better today? And you try to use examples of like, hey, we're not going to be any better unless you can get outside of yourself, right? And that's hard. And sometimes you have to do it where, we have a kid with cancer that we've had for 3 years, and you take him to his game and whatever. And sometimes that's perspective in other areas, and you try to expose them to these different things. But it's a two-part thing. You have to show them that you do care about their development and their individual stats, but you have to get outside of yourself to collectively make the unit better.
We live in an age where you've mentioned already, like social media and everything is kind of almost more self-serving, self-centered. But to me, I think the best teams and the best experiences I've ever had in team situations are no one cares who gets the credit, right? How do you create that environment and keep them competitive? Because like you said, we're at an age where like you can know, kids know every information about themselves. They know every stat, they know every metric. It is within that individual development, which is important. Does it breed a little bit of selfishness, I guess is my question. How do you then turn it to be like, this is bigger than you, we're trying to do this for the team and pull it all together at the same time?
I think mostly it's about identity. It's mostly about the individual's identity. Like, you'd be surprised. I ask, why do you play baseball? Right? Why do you play baseball? And they'll look at you and they have to think, right? Well, what's important to you? What drives you? Right? If you don't know these basic things and you're just out here hoping, it's not going to work out, right? So you have to have these individual conversations. You have to challenge them, when it comes to this stuff. But it starts with the identity. If someone doesn't have an identity, right, it's not just a role, but their own identity with how they get up out of bed and carry themselves every single day. It's not just on the field, right? Identity's first, and you create a role. And if they can have a sense of self within that, it's going to help the team. Right. So trying to take those individual conversations and understand who they are, because you're dealing with a bunch of personalities. I think that mitigates more of the team thing and gets more buy-in from a team perspective.
And then within the individual development, it takes, I'm sure, a huge staff. How do you go about building your staff and kind of prioritizing individual development? What's the system kind of look like here at Maryland?
Yeah. So it's funny, we started to really take this turn back in 2021. Me and Rob Vaughn have worked together. I always say we were kind of like peanut butter and jelly back then. He was really big on the character. He was really big on the approach, really big on all those types of things. And he was great with that. But I was really good at like the technical stuff, seeing the little intricacies and the details and the mechanics and all that. So we kind of started this model where, they would come in with me in the indoor first and start to work on the individual stuff as far as development goes. And then when we went outside for the day, it was more task-oriented, team-oriented. And that was a really good way to kind of tackle both things, right? You're understanding that you're taking the time to kind of train that individual, but on the field, like, hey, whatever we have to do within the context of the environment or that day, whatever it takes to win, that's what we need to do. And then it's just evolved from there with the motor preferences stuff I started studying. We were able to take that individual development where we may have a setup of 3 cages, but everybody's doing something different. So that just kind of started with Rob and I, and it went really, really well. And it's just kind of exploded from there.
How do you balance the individual development and not, and doing the motor preference stuff and having the TrackMan information and all the great tools that are important for developing guys against not bogging them down too much when it is time to go?
It's the biggest question I get, right? Anybody can find a crutch. Anybody can find an excuse for anything. So for me, it comes back to understanding the individual. Like some guys, it's internal cues. Sometimes it's external cues. Sometimes it's just equipment and constraints. Sometimes they have an analytical mind and can watch video and really break it down. You have to take the time to learn that individual. That's why when they come in, new players, the first 3 weeks, I don't say anything. They think I'm going to come in and start, developing and changing. And that's not, I don't think that's proper, right? Because guys have been the best players on their teams their entire lives. If I'm just coming in here starting to change stuff, that's not going to build rapport. So I think you need to observe. I don't think as coaches, we're doing a good enough job observing. We just want to fix, and we want to fix immediately. So you have to observe, you have to understand how they take things. And that's what I'm really good at. Observing, seeing all the little nuances, even if they change their batting gloves or their routine changes on deck, I'm seeing it. So you really just have to observe and take the individual into account, because you're right. It is complex, right? Coaching's complex. Player development's complex. Personalities are complex. We're in a game of failure. We already talked about that, right? It's not easy, right? And you're not going to please everyone, and not every player, it's going to go well on both ways. And that's why the art of coaching is so great. And that's why, just the actual competition of the game, anybody can win any day.
how do you prioritize what's important today with them? Because that's something that is always so fascinating to me talking to head coaches. You have so much on your plate. You have a finite amount of time. You have, a roster of 40 guys. You have probably 20 some plus hitters. How do you kind of decide, hey, this is what's important today for the individual, for the team?
It's so difficult. I mean, when we talk about, I mean, I think there's, the cliche word is being present, right? We build our experiences and our thoughts based off the past and the future. And we're always, fluttering between those two sides, but rarely are we ever just in our feet right here together, sitting in this moment. And it's hard, right? But it's got to be consistency from the coaching staff. Are you preaching the same things? Are you guys all on the same page? And for me, when the hitters come in every day, we meditate for 3 minutes. So we meditate for 3 minutes every single day. Before we start, the aerials or do more of a walking meditation because that suits them, and the terrestrials would do more of a seated guided meditation. And you're just saying like, hey, whether you did bad on a test, whether you had a bad day with your whatever girlfriend or relationship, right now we need to just get back to neutral, right? And if you can get them in that phase and you can focus for the next 3 or 4 hours, you can kind of go from there. But it's definitely a challenge, but you build in these systems and processes and things that you're trying to consistently communicate, and hopefully that works out.
Hitting is one of the most difficult things to do, period.
Mm-hmm.
What does efficient movement for a hitter look like to you and mean to you when someone says an efficient moving?
Least amount of energy, least amount of thought. I think we're in a sport with baseball where there's so many signs, there's so many things that change within every pitch, right? There's so many different types of things that can change from play to play, pitch to pitch. It's really just understanding like how am I going to get this person to play or hit or pitch as freely as possible with no thoughts. That's my goal. So yeah, we can adapt, we can do a whole bunch of things, but what kind of energy is that taking from the brain, right? What kind of stress is that creating? So in a short, kind of summary, I'm just trying to create as a stress-free environment in their own brain or thoughts as possible.
And then within that, trying to be free in the brain and in their thoughts, I would imagine you also want guys to stay athletic in the batter's box.
Yep.
How do you kind of prevent overcoaching them or turning them almost robotic with the different type of movement and drills that you can do?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, everything starts and ends with balance and coordination. So, I mean, anything in sport, when, we're just trying to get someone balanced and coordinated, because when they're balanced and coordinated, their brain's going to be most free to move. So it's really just the basics. I think we've probably all heard since we were little, right? Get athletic, be balanced, be coordinated. And I know that sounds really, really stupid, but surprisingly, we've gotten to so many different things of what kind of force we're putting into the ground and where is this at? Where is that? And yes, like that's coaching, right? I understand there's technical gesture coaching. I understand that's necessary. There's going to be tweaks in baseball, probably mechanically, almost more than any sport. Maybe golf is up there. And it's hard. So it's part of the process. I realize that. But yeah, you're just trying to really just understand the individual and get them as balanced and coordinated, because if they're going to do that, they're going to move more efficiently.
What then is the team-wide approach while letting guys be individuals? Because I would imagine you're not just going to roll an offense. I know you're not rolling an offense out there where you're going to, bunt and play small ball with every guy.
No.
There's certain guys. How do you then kind of create that buy-in to a team-wide approach while coaching them individually to do what they do best?
Two things. Number one, we're always going to be on time. And number two is swing decisions, period. We hammer the swing decisions. We led the conference in free bases, I think maybe 4 of the last 5 years, 5 of the last 6 years. I don't even know going back. We were led the country, I think, in 22 or 23. So being on time and swing decisions. So everything I do is predicated on swing decisions, swinging at strikes. And what we try to do, we train, we throw almost a ball around. So we're not training that, autopilot. We know that through skill acquisition is repeated movement, right? And what you're doing is build myelin in the brain, right? But you need to disrupt that. So we mix in a ball around. We give report cards after every game, and it's not predicated on results. It's predicated on swing decisions. So you're giving them a plot with every pitch they saw and then where they're actually swinging and make the decision. So without a doubt, we're trying to get on base, right? So the home runs are great, and people talk about how we've slugged in the past and all that. I never talk about home runs. I never talk about exit velocity. I never talk about bat speed. Everything we talk about is building an inning and getting people on. And the home runs are great, but a 3-run homer is backbreaking.
How important is it to then build a dynamic offense that's full of guys who can do kind of multiple things and have some balance in there, so that, hey, if we're going to slug three-run homers today, that's great, but also maybe we need to just get on base and apply as much pressure to a defense as possible.
Yeah, and I think that's what's kind of the last couple of years has been tough, is like, we hit a bunch of home runs last year and did really well offensively in the stat category, but weren't as dynamic as I'd liked, or maybe we were in the past. So I think it's all predicated on your clientele. You have, as a coach, have to be willing to coach the clientele, right? So some of that comes in recruiting, some of that comes in the portal, but you have to be willing to take a step back and realize, like, hey, who can do what, and kind of integrate that into your offense daily. Weather doesn't really come into play, but like the situations do, right? So if it's 1-1 in the 7th, like you may, have to do something that normally you're not accustomed to. And when we've been really good in 22 and 23 and those types of years, we were elite, averaging almost 10 runs a game. We were really, really dynamic in all those facets. So you try to build that through recruiting, but you also set them up daily for those situations in practice. We're doing a lot of stuff in situations where we're putting people in a lot of different positions, and we're practicing that stuff. We do a really good job of stealing third base as well. So you're just trying to kind of build that clientele through the recruiting, and then kind of have that come out in fruition on the field.
Going back to coaching the individual, for you, what is the thought process on, okay, we're going to focus on, accentuating this guy's strengths and pushing them forward, and okay, we need to clean up some of the weaknesses. How do you go about doing that and making those decisions on what's important for those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really hard in baseball right now is it's a culture of telling people they're not doing something right. And I remember that growing up. I mean, I was 5, 6, 7 years old, said, don't do that. That's not right. So we have a custom in America at how we coach by telling people what they've done wrong. So first of all, you identify, how their body wants to move. And I'm actually changing baseball to that, right? It's not just doing it my way. So first you're trying to establish of like, hey, this may not be wrong. You're not really using an inefficiency. You're not really using a problem. It's how can I change this to not make them feel that way? And, I'll never forget with Matt Shaw, he kind of came in and his back heel was off the ground, and you could see he was kind of searching for like, hey, is this okay? And I think it was probably one of the first times like, yeah, that's exactly what you should do, because so many people have said, hey, no, if you get more grounded, or you put more force into the ground, or you're more stable, you'll actually hit the ball harder. So you'd be shocked at just the mental freedom of not attacking, or maybe coaching in a way where it's like, that's wrong. That's not how you should do it. Right. So as a coach, you have to realize maybe what some problem areas are, right? Like maybe it's TrackMan data. How are you trying to apply the fact that they don't see or hit the ball down well? Right. So maybe what we're doing is we're changing their chin angle on a release point to help with that. Right. So you're doing things to make them feel confident in the changes. You're not necessarily telling them it's an inefficiency or something's wrong. So most of it's boosting them up first, of kind of like, hey, this is how you want to move. There's plenty of big leaguers that do this, right? And you're kind of going about it in a little bit of a different mental way, and you're kind of not necessarily tricking them, but you're giving them that confidence to say, hey, how you do things is okay. And it's our job to kind of build that up.
How do you guard against guys wanting to tinker too much? Maybe they had an 0 for 4, or they're in an 0 for 6 stretch, and you look at it and you say, well, the process is good, you're moving good, you're just giving, there's batted ball luck. It's a thing. Like sometimes it's just the way the game works. How do you then stop them from like trying to make changes and tinker because they're going through it, and like letting them know, hey, you just need to swing through it. You're doing everything you're supposed to be doing.
I don't think you're ever going to change that. I mean, it's kind of like the superstition, right? Like I was very superstitious and all that. So it's one of those things that I don't know if you're ever going to change the superstitions and the tinkering. What you try to always go to is the perspective and competing, right? Like, hey, we understand that you're trying to do the right things by tinkering. We're trying to do the right things in these different types of changes, but competing is non-negotiable. So as long as the tinkering doesn't affect the mental state of competition in the box or the game, you just kind of have to feel your way out with knowing that player and say it's okay. When it becomes overwhelming and people are lost and those types of things, that's more of a, hey, you got to get in there as a coach and, almost be like a dad or, a therapist per se. And we know that that's baseball, man. I tell you, a lot of these conversations I've had over the years are more just talking in the cage than they are mechanical changes, right? And just getting someone back to neutral. And that's the beauty of the game, and it's tough.
Yeah, and so then that goes to like coaching the mental side of things, because hitting is so much mental. Just like you said it earlier, you need them to be able to be free mentally. So how much time are you spending comparative to maybe mechanical work and stuff like that on the mental side? I know you mentioned the meditation every day to get them present and keep them grounded and neutral. How much other things are you doing from the mental side to, allow them to compete freely?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, we're using a third party for leadership. You have a full-time sports psych that comes in every couple of weeks and talks. You're doing the meditation, but really for me, day to day, it's process until I annoy you with that, right? And controlling the controllables, really, because you can work really hard, you can put in extra work, and this game owes you nothing. Right. And it doesn't mean that you're going to go out and actually have success just because you work hard. Right. So understanding to them is like, hey, just because you work hard, you're not owed anything. Right. You're not entitled to an opportunity. Right. So it's being factual, it's being truthful, but it's back to the process. Right. Sometimes it's as dumbing it down and saying, hey, did you swing at a strike? Right. In this at bat, if you swung at a strike and got out, that in a sense is a win. So when I give this report card to the hitters after the game, it's not predicated on success. If they controlled what they need to control and they swung at the right pitches that day, they're going to get high marks. And surprisingly, when you're more process oriented and you do those things by swinging at the right pitches, all the numbers go up. Right. So it seems elementary, but you got to tackle it from different ways and just try to get them back more focused on the process.
Within staying in the process, harping on swing decision, what's the game planning process like when you go to see a Friday night starter in the Big Ten? Are you kind of looking at that guy's weaknesses, his tendencies, and are you forming it to then within the individuals in the lineup? What's that process like?
Yeah, it's so difficult today, right? We have more data than ever. We have more information than ever. It's how can that player assimilate it into that day to go out and compete and win, right? So, and I've had hundreds of conversations with our current big leaguers. What do you do? How do you process it? And you'd be shocked at the two polarities of how the total ends of what people do, right? So what you do is you're preparing for the day, right? And you show them what this pitcher does well, right? But you also know in the crowd of your 15 to 18 hitters, they do a lot of different things well, right? So you got to have the overall scouting report. Hey, does he have a tell, right? Is he slow to the plate with a man on second? What are his looks? Those are things to attack. What does he go to? What's his secondary out pitch, right? Those are all basic things that you kind of go through every day. And then you're teaching the individual, how do you assimilate these type of pitchers into what you do well, right? So high releases, low releases, high spin, sink, all those different things. And now you're talking about the individual chin angles, what they're looking for, zones, all these different things. So it's really a constant battle between what overall is a scouting report going to be, but really it still comes down to the individual assimilate that into their game. But if you do that consistently, the guys understand what they can handle. The guys understand their approach and plan of attack for the day. And then, we're trying to envelop that all into kind of our pack offense, which is what we do overall.
How much are you making lineup decisions and maybe even pinch hit decisions less about platoon advantage righty lefty then, and this guy's swing plays against this guy's arm slot and pitch stuff? Are we that far into it at this point?
Oh, way far. And it's actually crazy. Softball's been doing it way more than baseball. So if you know that now, I've worked with a lot of softball programs. They have rise ball hitters and normal hitters. It's shocking. Like they're so good at it. It's just because they're closer and it's so visible on that rise ball who actually can hit it, right? So yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. You're talking about pronation, supination. You're talking about zones of what they like based off vision. So we humans have tendencies to either see more up or down better. We know that. Doesn't mean they can't hit them in the other zones, but they're definitely their TrackMan data, all of batted ball data. We understand why it is what it is. So it's really important, and we utilize it all the time. I think that's also predicated probably on the depth that you have within the unit, which is why I'm so excited about this year. We have one of the deeper teams that we've had. Don't know if necessarily we have star power yet, but we have a lot of depth and a lot of ability to have those options to, like you said, hey, is this a high spin guy? Maybe let's get an aerial up there that likes the ball up, that doesn't really have a problem with it. Or is this more of a sink guy that, maybe a terrestrial likes the ball a little bit lower? He can drop the head down there and give us an advantage and chance to win the game.
That's really fascinating stuff. My favorite last question always to ask head coaches before you get out of here. If we fast forward 5 years down the road, what would you like, the next 5 years to have looked like for Maryland baseball?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. So it's hard to answer because terrestrials think more in the moment, right? And aerials actually think more in the future. So if you know personality types, it's interesting to know that about your players and yourself. So, I just want to continue to evolve this program. I think my legacy here, if I'm blessed to be here throughout my career and given that opportunity by a great university, is just to put this. Build a stadium, right? Like continue to put this place on the map. I've come where we had chain link fence in the outfield. We did not have an indoor cage. We had 4 scholarships in the ACC. I've seen it come from not making a tournament in 43 years to making 6 since we've been here and 1 game away from Omaha. So just to continue to build that program up, the stature where we're respected. We've created a niche. You know what you're going to get. Anybody, anywhere, anytime. We'll play you under any circumstances, no matter what the circumstance is. The guys are going to play hard. So just to continue to see the program evolve. But, I'd love to build a new stadium for the fans, for the program, so these guys can feel really, really proud about coming back.
Coach Swope, thank you so much for your time. It's been awesome.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.